I have over 1,500 days of login in Genshin, and this is now 2025, and I had to ask myself, can I guide people who wants to casually play this game? Do I have any tips? Do I still know this game enough to give good tips? What would I tell people if they suddenly come up to me and say, hey, should I start playing Genshin and how do I play it? Well, to those of you who want some simple casual tips, you've come to the right video. The name's Leafy, and I welcome you back to Casual Guides to Games, Genshin Edition. Alright, let's make this show quick and easy and start with my number one tip, which is to, first of all, understand what type of a game Genshin is. And I don't mean that in a way where you figure out if it's an RPG game, a roguelike, a hack and slash, or anything like that. I mean to say that you have to understand what a gacha game is and how these games are generally meant to be played. Instead of buying a game, spending 100 hours over the span of 2 weeks finishing it, and then putting it on your finished shelf, Genshin is the type of game you would spend 50 hours on in the first maybe 1 or 2 weeks and then gradually split the other 50 over the next 3 or 4 months, which will then continuously split until either you stop playing the game or the server shuts down. In my case, however, it's more like maybe 2,000 to 3,000 hours spent over the course of 4 years, because there would literally be times where I spent north of 6 hours in this game in a day, but who's counting really? Understand that most gacha games would require for you to log in and do a couple of things every day, and that would take you somewhere between 10 to 20 minutes to complete. And Genshin is just no different. It will always be a game meant to be played very casually over an extended period of time, and trying to trudge through everything within a single span of a couple of days will do nothing but burn you out faster than the sun would cook an egg on a street on a hot day. A lot of people come into this game wanting to burn through it, only to end up burning themselves, because that's just not the type of game Genshin is. And if you do still want to burn through it, don't complain when you suddenly find yourself bereft of content. Not everyone who wants to try Genshin have really played gacha games beforehand, so this is a tip that I always give out to people who I know haven't actually played gachas before. You understand this, and then you can proceed with the tips, which revolves around actually playing the game itself. To which leads to tip number 2, which is to be very ready to explore. Whether it is quests, getting materials to build your characters, gathering premium currencies, looking for cool non-main story content, or even achievement hunting, you will be doing a duck ton of exploration in this game. While some of you might say, yeah, of course, what idiot would be going into an open world game and not be ready to explore? You'd be surprised to know that the number of people who play this game and hate exploring, or at least think that it's a waste of time, is in a value that is more than 1. However, it is also because full open world exploration is not something that is all that common in the general scope of gacha games, at least as of yet. And in terms of your traveling methods, Genshin is kinda like Skyrim without the horses, and you can instead use certain skills that unfortunately only certain characters have to boost your traveling time. It can take quite a bit to get to some places if you are unlucky, but Genshin has been doing a decent job at avoiding that, at least in the general scope of things. Genshin's map is also charitably massive, especially if you were to start now or recently. Coupled with the amount of underground sections they have now, you will be in for quite the exploration ride. My general rule of thumb to make exploration easier is to always have an exploration team that not only is combat ready, but also always consists of at least one bow user, in case you find puzzles where you need to shoot stuff, a movement character, characters that have skills that can help you navigate terrain, and any type of sustain, whether it is a healer character or a shielder. Whatever element or playstyle you want to base it around doesn't really matter so long as you have those basics covered, and you should be good to go. My own team evolved from this random mash of whatever characters I had during release, and then to this D-Luke Chill team, and then to the Zhongli's Angels team that I've been daily driving ever since Movuka released. And they all hold that principle to a T. Tip number 3. Never, ever decide to not pull a character you actually initially wanted before trying them in-game. This is mostly a precaution for people who can easily be swayed by the doom posting epidemic that seemed to be much more of a factor in Hoyo communities. Put it like this for your general Genshin player. You've saved up your gems, you found that one character that you either liked in the story, liked their gameplay trailer, or maybe you just liked their overall looks and you thought, yes, I wanna pull for them. But then you see some comments around in YouTube or somewhere talking about how, that character is actually so weak, or something like terrible value, super clunky, don't pull, and also things such as they're going to get power crept, or they are already power crept, and maybe seeing all of that makes you think, I guess I shouldn't pull for the character then? By default, my take will always be, hey, if you wanted the character and you had the resource for them, for whatever reason it is, just go and pull for them. Forget what everyone else is saying and spend your gems however way you want. But at the same time, I get that you might want a bit more reassurance, and if that is the case, then you wait until they are put in game and then trial them out. If their gameplay is to your liking, then pull. If it turns out that they are maybe a bit too restrictive for you, or maybe some parts of their mechanic feel clunky to your style, then maybe you should take a step back and further reconsider your choices. What you should never ever do is to want to pull for a character only for you to get scared off by all the doom posting you see and then just outright decide not to pull for the character right then and there, never ever giving the character a try when they were finally released in the game. Genshin characters have a lot of variety and mechanics involved when it comes to their playstyles. The only person who can determine if a character is for you is only you. Don't let the opinion of others be your final say. Find your own judgment and make a decision off of that. On to tip number 4. Effectively use your resin in your downtime and build all of your characters. In any game that you play, especially in gachas, there will be those sorts of periods of downtime where you've built up the characters you want to use, you got your Double Abyss theme ready, you've done the quest that you want to do, you've leveled up your world objectives, and you generally don't really have a particular objective you need to complete with your resin. The easy way to pass your resin usage at this point is to just farm out those Mora and EXP book leylines and call it a day, since it's generally useful to just stock up on those anyways. But if you kept doing that when you already have an apocalypse-proof saving of them, then I will always recommend for people to look at their roster of characters and slowly begin building all of them to a usable state. Usable state is such a keyword here because the mistake I see a lot of people make when they try to do this kind of thing is that they are gonna end up going overboard and actually try to do 5% builds on all of them, which is more likely to shit your brain faster than you can do it yourself. Usable state, in my perspective, is to just build them to a point where they can averagely do the job they were meant to do, and that's it. No min-maxing, no needing to hit certain stat goals, just make sure that they don't get clobbered in 2 hits. 70-80 being the ascension people most go for so you can unlock that second passive, though I tend to try and go for 80 anyway. My own preference when it comes to building most of my DPS is mostly aiming for a 60% crit rate to a 150% crit damage ratio, with the neighborhood of 200% crit damage being the ideal sweet spot. Now, I may look like I have a lot of characters already at a 70% crit rate to over 200% damage ratio, but this is just because I've been constantly working on improving them bit by bit over a decently long period of time, so if you give each of them the proper care, you can also replicate this kind of roster. I don't really care about getting ideal stats on more niche stats like Elemental Mastery for DPS because they tend to take quite a lot of time to get to. And for supports, generally, they have only 1 or 2 stats to focus on, so they are a tad bit easier to get a proper build for. Even if you think that you'll never ever use those characters, just give them something usable, because you'll never know when there will be maybe certain events, maybe very specific overworld use cases, or even very specific abyss cases where you need that particular character skill set. If you have them built in the background, you can just say, oh, I can just use those characters, plop them in, and you won't have to think if they do the job or not. Especially now with Imaginarium Theater being an endgame mode that needs a wide range of characters and It is meant to test your understanding of utilizing character mechanics more than it is about testing their builds. This is something that I can wholeheartedly recommend people to work passively towards if they are done working out their main themes and need a little something to do with their resin. I was able to do Imaginarium Theater on a gobletless Dea, and even if she had one, she still was just meh in terms of build. It just makes for less of a headache when you suddenly need characters you don't usually use. Unless you have deep hatred for the character and you refuse to touch them. Don't worry, I get it, that's me with Dory. F you, Dory. And now it is time for the final tip number 5. A tip I will never get tired of repeating, which is to always remember to play at your own pace and play with your own style. Genshin's one of those games where you progress blazingly fast in the first week of the game and then proceed to monumentally slow down as you rise up in world level and adventure rank level, particularly around the level 40-ish AR level. But this is for good reason, since the more your world level ranks up, the higher level the overworld enemies become. This crossroad will be the time where it is highly recommended for you to actually slow down and make sure that your account itself is ready to continue leveling up. Instead of trying to forcibly maintain the pace of progression and immediately maxing out your world level, take it easy and instead prepare your characters so that they can actually handle the new world level. Don't force yourself, and more importantly, don't force your characters, because more often than not, you need to build them up a bit more before you can do the Ascension quest and comfortably use them against the higher level overworld enemies. And remember, you have to farm overworld enemies for character materials, so if you can't comfortably farm them, it might make you feel a bit stuck for some period of time before you can finally get your resources together and slowly catch up to that world level standard. But if that were to happen, you might find yourself feeling a bit miffed at having your progress stagnate that hard. This also applies to endgame stuff, particularly the Abyss. A lot of people try to force themselves going for a full 36-star clear when they just simply haven't had the teams set up for it. It's okay for you to just go for 27-star. In fact, most people do that more often. Hell, it's hella alright for you to just not even attempt Abyss at all. A lot of people can't even be bothered to touch it. Although I do recommend that you at least try to do floor 9 and 10, because those are generally easy to do even with average character builds. Though apparently, at least in my community, some people rather not touch Abyss at all instead of just going at it a little bit. But anyway, the point is to just do what you can at your given progression and not push yourself too hard. Because in the end, what's a couple hundred gems worth to your overall sanity when you still have the rest of the game to improve your team? Trust me, you'll get to that 36-star clear so long as you give yourself the time and progression, so no need to bust your balls trying to get there as fast as you can. Even if you needed gems for a character, just remember that a rerun is always on the horizon. Well, yes, you might run the risk of actually wanting a character that ended up taking years to rerun, which would be unfortunate, but they will eventually get their time again. And of course, no matter what, keep playing the game the way you want to play the game. You want to play the waifu or husbando collector route? Enjoy it. You want to be up to date with all the meta and use it every single rotation? Then get building. You want to be meta but in the most unorthodox way? Go for it. You want to only focus on the story and don't even care about doing slightly difficult content? Always an option. There are numerous ways to treat Genshin as a game, and no one should be able to tell you exactly how to play. The important point is to always remember that this is a game. And what other things should a game do other than to give you a fun experience? Is it really a game if you can't enjoy yourselves? Don't lose sight of this end goal and do what you want to do in the game to achieve this fun. And there you go. So far, that's about my biggest 5 tips if you were to start playing Genshin in 2025. Hope it's given you guys some insight when it comes to the type of experience this game can give you, and if you do seem like you wanna give it a try, then I highly recommend that you do. It's a free game anyway. It costs you some hours of free time, and if it doesn't suit you, the uninstall button is always an option. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, feel free to give it a like, and do feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you want to come and hang around, I'm going to start streaming on Twitch soon to do my Genshin explorations because I am heavily behind. By the way, do as I say and not as I do. I'm well aware of what tip number 2 is. So give it a follow and come say hi. Until the next video, the name's Leafy, and I'll see you all next time. Sayonara.